and welcome once again to the Launchpad podcast. My name is J-Man, and we have a very special edition. I've never done this before, but I have 4 people on one podcast, the wonders of modern technology, and we're going to have a candid COVID conversation. The gentleman in the orange sweater, he's a retired police officer. His name is Claude Pepin. I've known him for quite a long time, and we agree on nothing other than the fact that he'd appear on this podcast. Then we have Scott. Scott is a paramedic. He's been a paramedic for 10 years. He's the superintendent. And then we have Jen Hayward, small business owner, former comedian. Is that right? Is there like a female thing for comedian?
Just comedian, and I wouldn't say former, but thank you.
Still? Oh, you're still doing comedy as a gig?
Not really. Just don't say it.
Just give.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Nonetheless, so she is the owner, CEO, sole proprietor of Go For It Deliveries, and I'm so happy to have you here. And I was trying to think of some questions that a lot of people would have on their minds, and basically looking for the subjects of debate. And I'm going to start with you, Chris, because you obviously kind of have the inside take, the inside look at what's happening in hospitals. So being a paramedic, obviously you're dealing with a lot of people that need assistance. And the big thing right now is everyone's talking about the hospitals. Ottawa did such a good job. No people in the ICU. It seems like hospitals are not overcrowded like we seem to hear in a lot of places in Canada. The United States is a completely different ordeal, apparently. So what do you see from the inside out? Do we have an overcrowding problem? They keep on talking about an overcrowding problem. Are we prepared for something like that?
Well, we certainly have an overcrowding problem, but it's not due to COVID. I was watching CBC just before they announced the lockdown, and the CEO of the Ottawa Hospital said that they were in excellent shape with no patients in the ICU. And I believe it was Jim Watson who tweeted them out and congratulated them for not having any patients admitted to their ICU. It may be a bit of a different situation in Toronto, where they do have a significant amount of people with COVID. But even then, they only have, I believe it's somewhere around 120 people in ICU. And they have a lot more ICU beds. I mean, they have multiple hospitals. I believe they have somewhere around 2,000 to 3,000 ICU beds. And this magic number, right, is 300 patients admitted to ICU. And that triggers a lockdown, or is at least one of the steps to trigger a lockdown. And I don't know where this 300 number came from, because that's a very low amount of admissions to ICU, considering the overall capacity that we have here in Ontario.
Okay, so overall, do you think that the government's doing a good job with the mandates, the regulations, that type of stuff?
I think they're doing the best that they can. I think that their misstep with this lockdown was changing the date. I think that takes away some of the legitimacy behind it. Up until now, I have been on board with what's occurring. I think the lockdown in the spring was necessary, in the new year was necessary. I'm glad we opened up sort of in the summer and the fall, but now it just doesn't seem like it's like the numbers are there.
Right. Claude, I'm curious as to what you feel about it, because I know that you follow politics really closely. We agree on some things, we don't, but I don't think I've really asked you about this question in particular. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think this latest lockdown for Ontario is a bit too widespread. It shouldn't be province-wide. I come from Northern Ontario, small town of Kapuskasing. They've had probably 5 cases, if that, since the spring, since the start of the pandemic. And now they're locked down for 14 days. That's crazy. And here in Ottawa, but I did hear today there's 1 case of COVID in ICU as of today in Ottawa. So there you go. There's just 1. And again, to close off all of Ottawa for 28 days, I find this crazy. I understand they're trying to say, okay, well, after Christmas, during the holidays, people are going to get together and the cases are going to spike like crazy in the new year. Well, this lockdown didn't really change anything. It's closing down all the businesses. It's hurting the businesses. We've talked about that in the past, like crazy. And now for the Ontario government to create regions and to determine which colors these regions are going to be, and then to forget about all this and say, okay, we're going to a province-wide lockdown is a bit different from what they've been doing in the past, I find.
Right.
I think they're saying we got to do something, and let's do this to
Yeah.
appease basically everyone.
See, I get that, and I understand, what you're saying, Scott, in regards to like this is the first pandemic we've had to go through with modern medicine, et cetera. So fine, we give some lenience to the government in regards to what they do, and then in regards to Claude unpacking that whole statement, yeah, it's hurting small business, and I think the narrative that's changing right now is the fact with all these different zones, et cetera, is that there's a big time blame game that's going on right now. And I really was not a fan of Ford's last conversation in regards to, hey, Ottawa, great job, but it's the Quebecers' fault, or, it's Trudeau's fault, opposed to, like, this is supposed to be a time of unity. Why are we not bringing people together here? So I was really disappointed in that. Now, in regards to small business, Jen is a small business. Now, she happens to be in a small business that came around at a really good time. She's into deliveries, right? So people are obviously looking for their things to be delivered. I mean, I understand that this is something that definitely benefits your industry in particular, but what are some of the ramifications that you've seen with small business for yourself? And of course, you have a lot of friends that are entrepreneurs that are in small business and the effects that you've seen on them.
Well, certainly. I mean, first of all, we don't benefit hugely. Bezos and other people do. The industry itself is kind of a dumpster fire because everyone wants free now, but that's for another podcast.
Right.
But realistically, we have had to do 3 times as amount of work with half the staff. CERB certainly cut into our staff, and rightfully so. They said, why would I want to drive when I don't have to? Why would I expose myself when I don't have to any risk? That was during the first lockdown. But we have 300 local customers, 400 now, and about half of them are active right now. At the beginning of COVID, we sat on the phone with small business owners who were crying to us because they had to shut their doors for the first time in 25 years. We saw people decimated. We saw people who couldn't pay their bills. That was a trickle-down effect as well. Also, I'm very bad at accounting, but all of these things have certainly. So, like, I always get a little defensive when people say benefit because I haven't had a day off since COVID started, and I'm autoimmune. So we're there on the front lines, and we're doing everything that we can. And the second lockdown was so frustrating for us because it felt like and I know you don't like the blame game. I kind of like it. I want to blame the people who decided to all gather during Christmas and why we had overcapacity in all of our hotels from people in Toronto. That's why we're closed down right now. It's because some people made a choice, and that's fine. That's their choice to make. But we're being punished because everyone was fearful of what would come out of Toronto and that those numbers would spread. So I feel for all of our local businesses, and I don't feel we can blame Toronto, but I think there are individuals who did not have to be here who made poor choices. We have people who come in from the UK making poor choices, and here we go.
Sure. Okay, so that would be government doing a poor job. Now, I could argue that's speculation. It's not to say that it's untrue, but it's speculation to the fact that I don't believe that people have changed their behaviors all that much in between the first lockdown and to where we are right now. That's just me. And that is also speculation. And yet the numbers were still pristine. And then you're going to tell me that we did all that work for absolutely nothing when you were just going to shut us down regardless.
Exactly.
So,
Yes.
I mean, I personally don't blame anybody. If I'm going to put my blame on anyone, I'm going to put my blame on the people that we put in power, which would be the government. And that's just how I decide to do it. Because if we don't come together out of this unified, where are we going to be?
But we weren't unified to begin with.
Well, we were far less divisive. That's for sure.
I disagree, and I will go down a little tangent. But as I said, this is the first time that many middle-class people have ever been affected. This is the first time many middle-class white people have ever had negative effects in their life. Let's be realistic. Indigenous communities have been going through this kind of crap our entire lives. This is not new to many people. The divisiveness came up when people who are finally feeling oppression for the first time didn't know what to do with it. That's where a lot of the divisiveness comes from, where people are being more vocal about their hatred and their anger because they don't know what to do. So people are raging against the machine who have never raged against the machine. So we're all, in a way, more unified that we all don't like the government now, which is a good thing for the same reasons. But I'll let these gentlemen talk, but that's my more feminist kind of view.
Can you stop being smart? I don't like this whole. I tried to bring on people that were going to agree with everything I said. Shit. Okay, so Scott, when I was talking with you previously, but before we started the podcast, mental health was something that popped up. And regardless to whether we agree on this or we disagree on that, the one thing that I believe everyone can agree on is that this has ramifications on people in regards to their mental health. I think no matter what it is that's going on in people's lives, that it's having some type of an effect on their overall wellness, psychological, physical as well. You know, people are sitting at home, they're eating too much, they're drinking too much, they're not able to exercise. You know, what are your views on that? Are you seeing the ramifications of that right now? Do you find that the people that you're dealing with just generally are more hostile, or how are they receptive to you as a paramedic?
Yeah, there's certainly an increase in just mental health calls overall. A lot of people are just stressed out. They're highly anxious. Because a lot of times they're indoors, right? They don't have those stress relievers that they normally would have. And this was an issue before COVID. We were in a major mental health crisis before COVID. And now this is going to compound that and also introduce some more people into that. Healthcare workers, you know, there's going to be a large burnout of healthcare workers at the end of this, but also with kids. We're taking away their social development. What's going to happen to this next generation that's growing up now that doesn't have that social interaction that they desperately need to develop?
I was at a Starbucks when this whole thing started, and I remember just having a conversation with this lady, waiting for the coffee to come out because they were handing everything outside the store, like with a tray, the first lockdown, and wiping off my card and all that kind of stuff. And her kids were playing, and I said, oh, well, you know, it looks like your kids are doing all right. And this couldn't be any more than, you know, maybe 2 months in. And she says, you know, like they look happy, but there's something off. And that was a while ago. Know what I mean? Like, we're ramping up on almost half a year to a year since that whole thing happened. So even though sometimes these kids, they are resilient and they are able to adapt to a lot of different situations, scenarios, there definitely seems to be like something of their spirit that's being taken away. And I just think it must be so damaging to them. I'm watching kids on the street walking with masks on their face, not even when they're required. You know, so the psychological impacts, most definitely, I can see that going down. And Claude, you'd be a really great example of that, actually, to segue in nicely. So I was not allowed to go to the bathroom in Claude's house during the summer because, well, here, you go ahead, Claude. Tell the story and the protocols that you took in regards to your household.
Yeah, it's true, because during the summer, we had our son living with us with his pregnant girlfriend, and she was due in July. So there you go. So we had basically a COVID baby there, born in July, living in our house. So our son was following the protocols to the letter. And that's why it was really serious. And you coming over was basically a surprise that you were allowed to come over. We hung out outside by the deck and all that. And yes, you had to go piss in the bush. And basically that's what it was, because our son and his girlfriend were saying, and she's a nurse too. So there you go. She was following all the protocols. She didn't want to get sick. She didn't want to get her baby sick. And when the baby was born, again, a baby doesn't have an immune system until it's about 3 months old. So there you go. There was another quarantine after the baby was born. So we weren't basically allowed to go out and gallivant around. We had to stay home and just go get the groceries and stuff. So yeah, it was a pretty serious time, but our grandson is healthy and he's doing great. So that's one positive thing about this pandemic.
So Jen, geez, I don't
You
want to go
can't
back.
go to the washroom in my. You can't go to the washroom in my house either, and that's whether COVID's gone or not.
I don't want to go back to you. It's dangerous. But you know, so mental health, obviously, you know, you're someone that's in it. And I think one thing that people sometimes maybe bypass when it comes to people that obviously would like to keep their business open, and there's this question of like, you know, what's more important, right? Being able to, you know, go out there and earn an income, or to be safe and potentially save lives, all that kind of stuff. And, you know, there's an argument on both sides. I mean, yeah, you want to be healthy, but I mean, if you can't provide for your children and put food on the table, what good is it, right? Especially for something that we're talking about that has a very small fatality rate. That's what really kind of gets everyone all, you know, kind of into the most, I think, heated of debates is, why are we doing all this for something that has such a small death rate? And now you're in a position to where, well, I'm not sure if it's you specifically, but a lot of small business owners have like their homes tied into, you know, this lockdown. And if they're not out there and they're not making money, if they're not fulfilling their financial obligations, not only do they lose their business, they lose their home. I could only imagine the stress, you know, for a small business owner that's in that position. Maybe you can speak on that.
Well, it's hard. It's hard. I mean, entrepreneurship is a choice. We have to start with that. And it's the arbitrariness of the lockdowns that has affected the mental health, because some people are allowed to go work and put their lives at the risk at Walmart, but you can't go to a sanitary shoe cobbler down the road. And that's where people are seeing the inequities across the board, is that, you know, other people are allowed to not only survive, but thrive. Big box stores for sure are thriving. They're getting more and more money. They've done nothing about, you know, wages raising, anything like that. It's, if you've been in a Walmart, I'm sorry, I'll be blunt, they're not clean. Every small business owner I know went above and beyond for protocols. And so that mental health and that fear of losing your home is huge. And now a lot of people were confused about CERB, and there's all of this, and it goes back from March onward. And there's some people who will never get their business back. Like, let's be realistic. People who maybe sold inflatable bouncy castle rentals. I don't know if that's an industry that's ever going to bounce back, right? And I don't know what people are going to do. I've seen people pivot amazingly, but again, we're delivering not just like necessities. We're delivering bougie items. People have not changed their habits. They've not changed their spending habits. This Christmas was insanity in terms of how much we were delivering from local business. So people definitely stepped up, but it's this arbitrary decision of who can stay open and who can't. I know of 2 sex toy stores. One was allowed to stay open because they had a higher amount of latex and one was not, and it's insanity. And so when you have to, you know, change the rules I told everyone, just start selling milk. If everyone just sold milk and made more milk than they made, say, doing comedy shows, which might happen because we haven't been allowed to do much comedy, well, then it's the milk show. And then we'll tell some jokes while we're there. It's insane. And so, of course, everyone's scared out there. It's ridiculous, but yeah.
Right. Maybe I'll be selling dildos in a week or 2.
Dildos and milk at the same time.
Yeah, why not, right?
Put that visual out there.
Okay, so overall, to kind of like, let's say, well, I don't want to say moving away from government as a whole, but I personally give them a failing grade. I think they've had a long time, or long enough time, to try to kind of figure these things out. The lockdowns, obviously, I mean, I don't believe they work. Scott, I'm going to let you have a quick talk on that in regards to, I mean, it seems like we're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and we keep on getting the same result. You know, we're coming across like the evictions now that are going to start happening. Like there's no planning for that. Like all the rollouts in regards to help, you know, from the government have been slow, or they've been poor, you know, with like incentives of being able to not have to pay back some of that money, knowing full and well that they're going to be owning a lot of these businesses by the time we roll out of this. And it just seems like, man, there's a lot of smart people out there that aren't necessarily in government that can come up with some common sense solutions. Why does it seem like government is in such disarray? And they're always kind of trying to figure out things when it happens, opposed to maybe just a little bit of forethought. So, you know what? I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't want to get any deeper. Well, do you have something to say on it, Scott? Because feel free, just jump in.
No, well, there's a lot in that. I would agree with you. I would say that they deserve an F as well, especially knowing what we know now, where they haven't fixed the long-term care issue. They have increased beds slightly, but they haven't changed that magic number of 300. We haven't really sorted out the vaccine issue. We have people getting the vaccine that work in long-term care homes that aren't really frontline staff. They're administrative, clerical staff that don't directly deal with patients. We don't even know who is categorized as a frontline worker. I'll just give you an example as paramedics. We've been treated as sort of in the second tier for PPE. I'm guessing we're probably going to be in the second tier for PPE for vaccines as well. But no paramedic in Ontario has received one for being a paramedic. So I think that's a safe assumption to make so far.
Right. So just Jen quickly, and then Claude, just give me a grade. Where do you think the government's at, and where do you think their biggest failure is? So we can just move on to the next topic.
For sure. I mean, their biggest failure. I mean, I'm going to give them a D because I'm nice, but and only because they're inept at everything. And I worked for government before I was an entrepreneur, and I've seen pandemic plans in the jail system that were ready to be rolled out. I don't know what happened to all these plans,
Right.
but again, you said the same thing over and over again, and nothing's changing. I mean, I go back, I'm sorry, to the Indigenous community. We've had the exact same thing with government trying to fix our community since 1901, and it hasn't gotten any better.
Right.
So yeah,
Okay.
there has to be someone better.
So Claude, what's your grade?
Well, a combination of the federal government, provincial government, municipal government, all together, I'll give them a C minus.
Oh,
All
God.
three. There you go.
Wow. Yeah. I
Aggregated
wish
the data.
if I had a kid, I wish they were in your class like this.
Oh, there you go.
You're a good teacher, and that's fair. I mean, you know what? I'm personally not a fan of Ford. I was early on. Now I just don't buy anything that he says. And as far as Trudeau is concerned, like, I'll even say it. I voted Liberal, and that was almost a throwaway vote for me because I just didn't want Harper in there anymore. I just kind of wanted a changing of the guards. And well, I fucked up. But who knew? Who knew?
Whoa.
It happens. Well, Claude knew.
We're not friends anymore.
Yeah, there we go. I know. I just lost a whole bunch of friends right there. Okay,
I
so
voted
let's
NDP if you cared.
let's talk masks. I wear my masks. I mean, I'll do it gladly. I do believe that it infringes on someone's freedoms of choice and their liberties, etc. And I also believe that this is what most people are willing to do to keep people safe, right? I think that's a really big statement. I don't believe that people should be walking around without masks just to start confrontation or there's places to make a stand and there's places not to make a stand. I don't like the name calling that's going on, whether it be a COVIDiot or whether it be a sheep. Again, I believe strongly in unity. Now, there's someone here that obviously knows a lot about masks. Scott, where do you stand on this? And I'm just going to say this before you even get started. We live in a world where, you know, it seems like 50% of medical professionals are saying they work, 50% are saying they don't. I'd like your take on it.
I wear a mask, but I think it depends on how you define the transmissibility of COVID-19. They say it's through droplet, but they also say it can be aerosolized. So if it is aerosolized, then your mask really isn't protecting you as well as if it is in droplets. Health Canada changed the way that COVID-19 is transmitted very quietly in the fall. They changed it to aerosolization and through aerosolization procedures. So if that's the case, then all healthcare professionals specifically should be wearing N95s anytime they come into contact with a patient. And that would explain in part why we're having trouble controlling COVID is because if it is through aerosolization, then it lingers in the air. So if you're in the same room as somebody and they're breathing out that viral particle, then it's lingering in the air and people are picking it up as they walk through it. If it is through droplet, then your mask significantly reduces the likelihood of getting it. It's just a question of what is it actually, and that seems to not really be answered.
Now, what about through my eyeballs? Could I not get
Yeah,
droplets? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So any mucous membrane. So your largest mucous membrane would be your mouth, but as a healthcare professional, we all wear some type of eyewear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I would argue, there was a time where people used to walk around with handkerchiefs. And I think the reason why people don't anymore is not because it's not fashionable. It's because they're fucking gross. That's why. You snot in your rag and then you put it back in your pocket. Now, I'm just going to take a wild stab here, but I don't think people are washing their masks every day. In fact, I see people take their masks, throw them on a table, stick them in their pocket. But I just come from this world that, listen, everyone is going to get COVID at one point or another. And it seems like, okay, sure, we want to slow down the rate or whatever. If this was going to be the super virus that killed the planet, like, we're just done. We're filthy, we're dirty, we're disgusting, we're carrying around these handkerchiefs everywhere we go. And like, I've even seen people put on other people's masks. Like, oh, I forgot my mask. And then we have, Dr. Tam, and we're talking about banging each other through glory holes and not facing each other during sex. And like,
it's good advice anyway.
It depends who you're having sex with, I guess. Like,
I've been married 20 years. So.
Like, there's an element of it that just seems to be just, when I hear medical professionals come out with advice like this, like if I was watching a parody on Saturday Night Live, it just kind of it takes away something from what they're saying to me. It makes me ask questions. It makes me scratch my head. Like, Claude, I know that you were someone that was, kind of like 100% on board with everything that was being rolled out before. Do you find that over time that you've lost a little bit of confidence in regards to the medical professionals, or maybe what you're hearing on the news? Does some of it seem kind of ridiculous? Like all the memes that are out on social media, does it make you scratch your head?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was 100% in everything, because remember when all this started, Dr. Tam and the professionals were saying, no, we don't need masks. So don't worry about,
Right.
the mask won't help. And then all of a sudden, a few days later, mask, everybody should be wearing a mask, right? Yes, things do change. Yes, it is the first real worldwide pandemic that our generation is going through. Yes, and not the doctors don't have answers for everything. So, but yes, it is kind of disheartening to listen to one professional either on TV or online and being contradicted by another professional. You see, we're wondering, because often we talk and then somebody, or online, somebody puts a link, look what this guy said. And then somebody throws in another link. Well, look what this guy said. And yes, it is confusing, and everybody is getting tired. We're getting to almost a year of this crap, and everybody's getting tired, and it is frustrating, and it is hard to continue with what we're doing right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know what I want to say just quickly in regards to, the mask debate, and there's just even more division, right? Like there's anti-maskers and whatever it might be, right? Is that we have two sides of the coin. I'm just going to split it 50-50 just to make this easy. But there's 50% of people that are more on the cautious side. They're going to wear their masks. They're going to call people COVIDiots that don't, and generally just say, like, I can't believe these dummies are causing all this shit, right? And they truly believe that they're doing something of a greater purpose. They are restricting their movement. They're wearing their masks everywhere they go. They're staying home. They're isolating, right? And doing everything they can to stop the transmission of this virus. Now, even though that is definitely not me to the T, I do my part, but I think, wow, isn't it great that there are these individuals that believe so passionately in wanting to save another person's health or potentially their life that they're willing to give all that stuff up. And then there's the other side where there are people out there that don't want to wear their masks. They feel strongly that their rights are being taken away from them slowly. They're out there doing the rallies. They're hearing the whole COVIDiot thing. But man, isn't it great that there's somebody that's based on what the other side is saying, is putting their life on the line to fight for your civil rights, your freedoms, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's this double-edged. I mean, we can come out of COVID, but if we don't have our rights, that's not so great, right? What's the point of coming out of COVID and not having rights? And you don't have to agree with this. I'm not saying that this is the way it is. I'm not saying that there's a dictatorship coming. I'm not saying that this is socialism. I'm just saying that both sides have a role that they're playing, and both believe passionately that they're doing something to help the other side. It's the fact that we just don't have this middle ground to where people want to have a conversation to where they're going to ask questions opposed to making accusations, right? So asking that person, like, why aren't you wearing a mask? And maybe just listening to what they're saying and asking a couple of questions, trying to have a little bit more of an understanding. And I believe the other side could do the exact same. The problem is that we're just not finding that healthy place in the middle to where we can just have this conversation. And that's why I'm glad that you guys are here right now. Now, Jen, because I saw you shake your head in disgust, I'll let you throw something out to that. Like, speak on it.
It's not disgust. I mean, the difference between the people on the extreme who won't wear a mask, there's a difference between can't and won't. And those who say, no, I'm doing this for civil disobedience, and I kind of call horse patootie. I do. That's a harsh word, I know, but it's 4 years ago, I was doing comedy up in Nunavut, and they were having the seatbelt debate. And it was the exact same debate that's going on here. So we have accepted seatbelts as science, right? So right now, until we have definitive science, put your frickin' mask on unless you have any sort of medical exemption, so that the rest of us can be as safe as we can. I just don't believe that they're fighting for my right. My right is, as a person with autoimmune who wants to get out of this shit. That is what I want. So I don't even know if it's right. I like this Scott guy. He says words that I don't know about, and that's good. And I want to listen to people like him. And he should be getting the right kind of mask for his job. I'll wear the crap that I wear. And I laughed because I used my daughter's mask the other day, but we're pretty bubbled, right?
Okay, so, Jen, well, how about this then? I mean, you know, we're doing these lockdowns and going to this extreme. I consider that to be an extreme. Someone not wearing their mask, sure. Is it flagrant disregard for other people's health and all that kind of stuff? Sure. But they're also making, like, it's a protest for them. Sure. Okay. Now, if we're so worried about the old people and the immune, okay, and quarantine is supposed to be for people that are sick or have a high risk of being sick, why not quarantine? Like, if you want to stay home, stay home. Like, know what I mean? Like, no one's objecting to that. I didn't even get to finish. I didn't get to finish.
Because you know where I'm going with this.
If that people want to stay home, they can stay home, and we should protect the elderly, right? And then let everyone else just kind of like get to business. Why does everyone have to pay the price for, like, number one, like where we really see the damage, like old people that have, you know, that are living in old age homes. And by all means, if there's an old person that doesn't live in an old age home, you know, that fought in a world war for our freedom, like, why the fuck can't they go outside for a walk? Or why can't they, you know, they can take their life into their own hands. So why not just, let's streamline this to where the people that are most likely to be affected, they can quarantine and take these extra measures and kind of let everyone else move on with their life.
Well, one, there's not going to be the adequate health care in the marginalized communities that there is in other ones. Two, people like me are at high risk. So you're telling me that we all have to, anyone who is born with anything that might make them more susceptible to die should stay home and let the rest of you have your life. How about everyone do what they're supposed to do to at least give us a chance at succeeding this thing? As long as you said people haven't changed their habits. Right. So if people are that selfish that they're not willing, and I'm sorry, going and protesting for my civil rights, we've been doing that, and we'll go back to that for years for many other different reasons. But now masks is it. Mask is where we're going to get all the rich white guys out there, all the people out there who are going to fight.
How are we ever going to get 100% compliance? That's just unrealistic.
I don't know.
There's always going to be people that don't.
But the rates in Kenya with that many more people where they went down, I'm not saying it's right, but I'll tell you, if you're late past curfew, you get caned over there. I have a friend who it had happened to, and it's not pleasant, but I'll tell you, they've managed their rates. Now, I don't want to go to that level, and I see what you're saying with the slippery slope. I've made the argument with choice many times myself. I just say, in this case, I find that, and I respect you very much, but a very selfish opinion. Why don't you let the rest of us go, and everyone else who could go die, sorry about it. I find that to be, until we have the research into people to tell us the things that we need to know, we all have to figure it out together. But to say that the survival of the fittest gets to win, I take offense on so many levels, because if you look at the determinants of health, it is going to be the same people who have won on the patriarchy in life that are going to succeed, and the rest of the communities and the marginalized women and the communities that are remote, that because people force them to go there, those are the people who will suffer. Again, I'm going back to just hearing Scott not have the right kind of mask for him. Like, that is where we are as a society. We should be fighting for that. You go and protest that, and I will join you. But protesting for someone's right to not wear a piece of cloth is the most.
But that's not it. I think I think that's
know.
where it's being missed. It's not about just wearing a piece of cloth. You know, there's a symbolism, I believe, that goes into that. But I'm not even looking to get into that debate. I believe that, you know what, just do your part. Everyone should do their part.
Everyone do your part.
I don't think just
thing.
because everyone wears a mask that this is going to go away, though.
I also agree with that.
I think that's way off. Okay.
But we might be a little further off if they try.
Now, you know, we were talking about listening to the professionals, and I think this is a good place to end on, and which would be vaccines, you know, vaccinations. And here's my stance on vaccinations. And then, Claude, I'll go to you, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree. I was watching the mainstream news, which I rarely do anymore because I think it's total horseshit. I don't like it. You know, it's just a breeding ground for fear. And I think that media has done us a grand, injustice by not going out there preaching general wellness, teaching us better nutrition, maybe giving us some TV or radio programming in regards to superfoods that we can eat, exercises that we can be doing, everything in our power to help us boost our immune system and our mental state to keep us grounded, to keep us united. I've seen nothing but division when it comes to media today, and social media is worse, and we have each other to blame for that. And I'm watching this one doctor, and there was questions that were coming in from the viewership, and they asked, well, what are the long-term effects from this vaccine? And the doctor answered honestly, but I'm surprised, they even allowed that question to be asked, or they didn't try to sway away from it. But they said, we don't have any long-term, we don't have any long-term stats to show where this vaccine is going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, the long-term effects. So I'm just going to say this to be devil's advocate, and then you can weigh in, Claude. I'm a selfish, that part's factual, according to Jen. I'm a selfish, healthy, 43-year-old male that has a very, very small chance of potentially dying from COVID. Maybe I've already had COVID. And regardless, my immune system is like 99.8 or 0.9% going to be able to battle it off. Why in heaven's name would I go put a foreign substance into my body that has not even been, they don't even know if it's going to prevent other people from being able to get COVID or me being able to get COVID again, that I don't know will, let's just say from something small, potentially, maybe losing more hair, going sterile, potentially causing a cancer, or just, Lord knows, just the myriad, a gauntlet of things that could potentially pop up years down the road that we're just not even aware of. Okay, why would I do that for a vaccine that apparently is 95% effective? Now that's just me and where I'm coming from. Claude, you come from, you're much older than me. How do you feel about that in regards to putting a vaccine into your body?
Give it to me. Give it to me now. I'll take it.
Right.
You know, like I'm 55 years old, I'm healthy, but again, it's to protect others also. You got to remember that, because again, you may be asymptomatic, you may get it, you don't know, give it to other people. We want to stop this virus from spreading even more, and want to get back to a semi-normal life. That's what we're saying. And you know, I talked to a buddy of mine, says his niece is one of the, basically, let's call her a guinea pig. She actually works for the for Pfizer, and she has been vaccinated since July. No
Right.
effects on her at all. So
No
at least
short-term
that's
effects.
something. Well,
No short-term.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
No,
but she's
what?
sterile 10 years down the road.
Well, there you go. See, is
But I
that
mean,
a chance we're taking?
well, right, exactly. So I think that's very fair, though. It's right. Everyone takes a calculated
Yeah,
risk.
of course, we are taking a chance. Yes.
Right. Okay.
It's like
Scott,
everything else. Yeah.
what do you think about the vaccination?
I've been very conflicted as to what I will do when it's offered to me.
Right.
I actually could get it right now because my father is in long-term care, and so I am a designated caregiver, so I would be able to get it. But I also had a COVID baby. We had a baby in June. So I think if I do get it, I will get it because I do not want to give it to her or my wife. But there are a lot of unanswered questions, and that makes me nervous. We don't know the long-term effects. We don't know how often you have to be boosted, or if this is a 2 shots and you're done, or if you're boosted every year like the flu shot. So that makes me nervous. But if it's offered to me, I will likely get it for my family.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Jen? Obviously, well.
Sign me up. I don't know.
Give me a whole bunch. I want.
I have this faith in my doctor, and I've
Right.
listened to my doctor, who has saved me. She's helped me lose 210 pounds. She's been amazing. And if she's always, you know, I said, listen, sign my kids up for stuff that doesn't even exist yet. And had she done that, they would have had the vaccine for COVID. But no, I mean, jokes aside, I don't have medical training. You can show me all the YouTube videos you want. I know where my doctor went to school. I know where she's trained. I know what she researches, and I trust her. And so if my doctor says get the vaccine, which she does, I will do, my family will do, and we will make it mandatory in this house for anyone visiting will have to have had the vaccine, because
Right.
I don't want to put ourselves at risk.
Okay, and
So.
for the person that doesn't want to, Jen, what do you say?
Pardon?
And for the person that doesn't want to, what do you say?
Well, again, I don't know enough about science, but I also get you're doing it to protect other people as well. So I guess going back to your statement, then maybe they just have to stay home and the rest of us can get on with our lives.
Mm-hmm. I don't like your sass. How do I eliminate someone from this?
And I don't actually believe that, but I just turned your words against you. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, so. I could mute you. I'm like, oh, we're having problems, technical difficulties here. You know, and I think that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to, and you can tell me if you agree or disagree with a nod, but it really just comes down to personal choice, whether or not someone is comfortable with putting a vaccine into their body or not. Can we get a general consensus on that? Okay, great.
Yeah.
So then I think where a lot of the pushback from something like this right now would be what a lot of us are kind of hearing as rumor. Some businesses have tried to implement it, but making a vaccine mandatory if people want to be able to jump on a plane. And a lot of people might think, okay, that's reasonable. Okay, fine. We don't want people traveling, you know, without having a vaccine, etc. You know, then it turns into, well, you know what? Maybe you can't go to concerts if you don't have a vaccine. Then maybe you can't go to the movies if you don't have a vaccine. It's a very slippery slope. And then people say, and I disagree with this statement, is that people still have a choice. Is it really a choice if people are left an ultimatum that they don't want to put something into their body? Maybe my doctor tells me that, you know what, I'd give this vaccine a little bit of time before you put it into your body. Now, I don't think there's going to be many medical professionals that come out and say that. I don't know. I'm not kind of putting that out there, but I'm just saying, let's play devil's advocate here. And they're saying that this is not something I think you should put in your body. I think you should wait a little bit longer before you do. You know, where do you fall where do you fall on that, Scott, in regards to being a medical professional, people having the ability to make that choice for themselves? And is it really true choice if it's left to ultimatum to where people are not able to participate with everybody else in regards to the societal norms?
So this is a conversation in my workplace. I'm certain amongst every healthcare workplaces, we're not mandated to get the flu shot, but we're mandated to be vaccinated as everybody else is. So what category does this fall under? Does this fall under an optional vaccine like the flu shot, or is this going to be mandatory like measles, mumps, rubella, and all those other ones? This is sort of where I would draw the line. Is I do think that when you mandate something and when you restrict people, taking in everything, taking in how many people have very little to no symptoms, how many people die, like, I don't think that this is where you make that stand.
Okay, and what do you think there, Claude?
Yeah, we have talked about that before, and it is a slippery slope. It's hard to have one position on this for myself. We had talked about, well, if you want to go to a certain country, you must prove that you had certain vaccinations, right? But it's your choice to go to that country. Again, it's your choice if you want to go to this concert, but you're not going to get this vaccination just to go to this specific concert. You're going to get vaccinated again to help society as a whole, to help get rid of this virus. So if you do get vaccinated, then the perks will be, well, you may be allowed to attend this concert, attend this hockey game, attend this and that. But again, are we going to be forced to do it? Again, I don't think we should be. So I'm still on the fence about this one.
Right. And what about yourself, Jim?
I mean, I was joking before. I don't have an answer for this one. I know I'm pretty smart, but it comes, and when I was joking and turned it around, but we do have the choice here, whereas people who are born with genetic, immune deficiencies don't. And so in this regard, I don't know. I just keep going to the joke that goes around about if you're going to put a Monster Energy drink in you, but you won't put a vaccine. Like, not everyone is putting stuff in their bodies that know. And I get how scary it is for people, but I have no answer for you, Jason, for once.
But know what? I think that's one of the most powerful answers is I don't know. Yeah. Is that when it comes down to this COVID conversation, everyone speaks in definites. And none of us really know. We all have our opinions. Some of us have opinions that are closer to the source, let's say like Scott. And then, there's people like me. I'm a dipshit. I just have opinions. I can't speak for anyone other than myself. I can, maybe do my best to try to understand where people are coming from. I believe that I've had a lot of conversations with people on both sides of the fence, and like I'm a 9/11 guy, right? So I'll just say it right now. I'm a 9/11 guy, and 50% of Americans don't believe the 9/11 narrative. And because that's something that I've shared positive, that I get labeled as being a conspiracy theorist, which is okay. I'll generally say that I'm a critical thinker. And oftentimes when I'll post something on my social media, I'll know that somebody's referencing maybe something that I had posted previously, because I'd like to think that even though I kind of make my stance heard as to where I fall on the spectrum of what COVID-19 is all about, I try to be very fair and down the middle and understand that everyone right now, and it was a little bit of an analogy that was going on a couple of months ago, that we're not necessarily all in the same boat, but we're most definitely in the same storm. And, based on how many storms that we've had to sail through in our life, we do it a little bit differently. Some people are really good at navigating these COVID waters, and some people, they really aren't. But I think the best thing that we can do in regards to one another, and which is why one of the hashtags I use is together, is that, there's a lot that I can learn, from Scott as a sailor. Jen, I can learn a lot from you. Claude, I can also learn something from you. And if we all share our knowledge, and we can do so in a practical manner without arguing and just letting the ship sink, we could all learn how to be better sailors and navigate ourselves through these storms. So I think I'm going to end on that. Scott's you know, thank you so much for being here, Jen, Claude. Any closing statements that you'd like to make there, Scott?
Just thank you for having me on. And the one thing I really like is if we can have different opinions in this podcast, but we all show each other mutual respect. And the one thing I liked about what Jen said is she would listen to her her doctor, and I think everybody should do that. You know, don't go off what you read. Talk to the people who know something about it. Get different opinions. Make your decision off of speaking to people who know what they're talking about.
Okay, Jen.
Well, very similar. I'm kind of touched right now with the irony is that these are the ways to have dialogues, but we can't have them in person anymore. So all we have is social media, and that's where the society is broken down because there's no listening. Because anything you say, someone's just going to say you're an idiot, call you a sheep or a COVID-idiot. It goes on both sides, and then the conversation is shut down. I think that's one thing I respect about you because I don't think I agree all the time at all with you on a lot of things, but I respect that you do think. You say and you dialogue and you bring people together. So that I want to leave on that on a positive note. Like, yes, you were born in a patriarchal society and you're doing quite well. I joke, but I honestly, thank you. I'm glad I got to meet Claude. The first time I've had a good conversation with a police officer, Burton, sorry, and Scott. You know, many blessings to you and your family for everything going on.
Right, and Claude, what about you? Closing statement.
Yeah, we have the light at the end of the tunnel coming up. I'm going to wish everybody a happier 2021. There you go.
That's beautiful. Yes. Happy New Year to all of you, and thank you for your participation. And maybe I'll have a couple of you guys back on again. I think it was a really constructive conversation that I believe people can learn from and maybe come together from. So thank you for being those three people to make that happen. You take care, be well, love simply because you can.
Thank you.